Welcome to the Living in South Louisiana podcast, where we talk about anything and everything living in South Louisiana. We talk about community events, and we bring on local professionals and business owners and discuss ideas, stories, and much more. We have all kinds of discount codes and coupons and giveaways that we do on this podcast. And I'm your host, Carson Rich, here with my co-host, Mr. Chuck Loescher, my mentor, friend, and Mr. Entrepreneur. This is episode number 1, where Chuck and I talk about each other's life stories, how Chuck became successful, the steps that he took to becoming a businessman. We share tips and strategies for mindset, as well as Chuck's biggest accomplishments in life, personal, and business. And this is jam-packed with information. I know you're going to love this, so buckle up and get ready for a great episode number 1.
Good evening, Madisonville, Louisiana.
All right, episode 1 of the Living in South Louisiana podcast. I'm Carson Rich, your host, and this is my co-host, Mr. Charles Loescher, better known as Chuck Loescher, Mr. Entrepreneur, Mr. Businessman, commercial real estate salesman, all of these things. This guy's crazy. So, Mr. Chuck, first, let's introduce our listeners to us. Tell them a little bit about your life story. Tell them a little bit about Chuck Loescher.
Absolutely. Chuck Loescher. I grew up in Araby, Louisiana, which was a great neighborhood. Had lots of friends, lots of people my age. Best neighborhood in the world to grow up in, I feel. I grew up and I went to Holy Cross in 5th grade. And I kind of grew up at Holy Cross and went there to my senior year. But before that, my father introduced me to, in 1969, when I was probably 5 years old, introduced me to Holy Cross and high school football and brought me to my first game. And I was at Holy Cross versus Brother Martin. And I remember going to that game, and I was so intrigued by watching Holy Cross come out on the field and the band playing the Holy Cross fight song and watching all the kids run on the field. And it's like, Dad, I want to play for this team one day. And I was only 5 years old. And I was like, I want to play football one day. Nice. You know, unfortunately, I didn't realize that I was going to be a small kid and a slow kid.
Oh, man, I can relate, but I'll let you keep going.
Right. I didn't realize everybody was so much bigger than me, you know. Yeah. But anyway,
How tall were you back then?
Probably when I started, I'd say 8th grade, I was probably only about 4'11", I believe. 4'11", and probably about 120 pounds, I believe. You know, so, but Holy Cross made me a man. It taught me business skills, relation skills, and the things that happened at Holy Cross to me. Some of them at the time I might have thought was bad, but actually formed my life that I have today. You know, being short and slow, but wanting to play football. And like I said once before, I played playground football. I felt that I was pretty good at it, but high school football was a whole different trade.
Sure.
And but what I did to overcome that, I started working out with weights at 12 years old, realizing I was too short and not that fast. And so I tried to go out for the team, the varsity team, when I was in 8th grade, which was crazy. And I was probably, like I told you, I was probably 4'11" and maybe 120 pounds.
Were you at least fast? Were you fast?
No, I was slow.
Oh, man.
Slow as could be. You know, I had a little strength behind me for being.
Yeah, that's you better be strong. If you have none of those things, got to be at least strong.
But actually, the coach kicked me off the field and said, "Man, you're too short. You're too slow, man. And you're never going to play varsity football." Which I love that word "never" now, because when anybody tells me "never," that gives me an incentive to try my best and do my best. So I went back and I cried a little bit, but then I went and started working out even harder and harder. And my freshman year, I actually made the freshman team and kind of did really well. And but unfortunately, I got suspended because I was playing playground football at the same time. So, but I got to practice with both teams every day and play. And then, so the coach had told me I was too short and too slow. He actually got fired that year after the freshman year was over with. And a new coach came in, Henry Rando. And I went to the coach and I said, "Coach, look, I know I'm short. I know I'm slow. I said, but that's all I ever wanted to do is play football for Holy Cross. And he told me, he said, son, he said, I don't cut anybody. They cut themselves. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I really didn't. But I found out really quick. In spring training, I was horrible. And he'd beat my butt, yell at me, kick my butt, throw me off the field, everything. But I kept coming back, and I wouldn't give up. And that summer, I started working out even harder. And I was going to be a sophomore. And I was probably benching 300 pounds as a sophomore.
300 pounds.
At 130 pounds and probably 5'2" at that time.
So more than double your weight.
Right. And I went and I practiced everything I couldn't do in spring training what the big kids did because I was a small kid. I started doing the ropes and carrying and got better and better at it. So I went out there my sophomore year and he started complimenting me instead of putting me down. And I was like, felt good about myself. But he would never stop me because I was too small and too slow. And but he knew that I was probably getting strong in bench press, and I was getting better and better. And then my junior year came up, and he still put people in front of me because he didn't believe in me. But I believed in myself. I didn't care how small I was or slow, but I believed that I could do it. And unfortunately, the first string guy got hurt, and we were going into a scrimmage game, and the second string guy, really unfortunately, his father died that day. So the coach had no alternative but to put me in the game. So he happened to put me in the game, and I probably made 50, 60% of the tackles, being a little bitty, and I was going against people with 300 pounds, and I was 130 pounds.
Nice.
So he complimented me because everything was on film then. So he complimented me the next game, and went into the Jamboree game, and I did the same. So he came back to me and he said, Chuck, do you think you could do that every week? I said, Coach, I promise you I could do that every week. So he still was kind of reluctant because I was small. So he put a friend of mine who's actually played for LSU and the Seattle Seahawks. He put him in alternating with me. So
what's his name?
Roland Barbe.
Okay.
Who was a hell of a nose guard too, but he'd alternate with me, and he was a year younger than me. But most of the time, the coach would put me in because I wasn't fast, but I was quick, and I could get in the backfield quick, and so on and so on. But I kept working out harder and harder with the weights, trying to get better and better. And that's where, further on in my life, when I realized in business, that's what it amounted to. I think back of my times at Holy Cross, what happened when I was against all odds. What did I do to get myself to achieve what I wanted to achieve in life? Mm. And I knew it was working hard, outworking everybody, giving it all what nobody else wanted to give. And I teach my son that today. I said, son, whatever you want in life, you got to do more than the other kid wants to do. They don't want to work out on Saturdays and Sundays. They don't want to work out on Christmas. They don't want to work out on Mardi Gras Day. But if you do that, you'll achieve what you want to achieve in life. Mm. So later on in life, when I was kind of got into business and started stumbling a little bit, I'd always think back to the years of Holy Cross, what happened to me, and how did I get to where I wanted to be and achieve the goals I wanted to. You know?
So you'd say the most important thing you learned from football was to work hard work?
Work hard, and no matter how much people put you down or tell you you can't do this and you never can do this, you keep working and working and you'll get there. And you keep praying and praying. I used to go to the chapel every day of my life at Holy Cross. I'd go to the chapel from 5th grade on up during lunchtime. And I'd go spend 10 minutes in the chapel and pray to God to help me achieve my goals.
There you go.
But my mom always told me, God only gives to those who work for it. So I knew that I could ask God, but I had to work hard too. You can't just ask God for things. It's like you can't ask God to win the lottery and not go buy a lottery ticket.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
So
Correct.
You need to work hard at things that you do in life and pray to God too. And God will help those who help themselves.
There you
go.
I
learned that the hard way too. God will help those who help themselves. So you got to help yourself by working for your goals and achieving your goals. But He'll help you as long as you do it. You can't sit home and sleep all day and then pray to God that you want to be successful. It's not going to work.
And then before you even do the work, some people won't even pray. if they don't believe that it can happen, if they
That's
don't
correct.
believe in the reality, if they don't believe that they can achieve what they want to achieve, even if they work hard, they won't work hard.
Right.
So I think
That's
you've got to
right.
believe too. I think in the Bible it says, "Ask, believe, and then you shall receive." And I think a lot of people forget that too.
Right.
They forget they've got to believe in it too. They got to believe
You
in
gotta believe.
themselves.
But God will test you a lot.
Yeah. So you had a belief when you
I
were
had a belief.
small,
I had a
when you were
belief. I had
when you
things that
weren't fast.
Right.
They would tell you they kicked you off the field, but for some reason you still had that belief in you, and I think that's
I had
why.
to believe in God, and had to believe in myself
Mm-hmm.
that I could do it, and that's how I achieved. That's how I started achieving things in life. Thinking back to when I was young, how did I get there? And I remembered I always went to the chapel and prayed, and I always worked 24/7 when the other kids didn't want to work 24/7.
Nobody else was
So
doing
it's
it.
the same thing in adulthood and when you're in business. You got to believe in God. You got to pray to God, but you got to work. You got to work 24/7. When you see people who don't want to work on Christmas and don't want to work on Thanksgiving and stuff, and you working on Thanksgiving, and you working on Christmas, trying to please your customers or please your clients, you're gonna make it. The other guy's not gonna make it. You got to be willing to do what other people are not willing to do. You know, so
Okay.
that's the key to success.
So that's what you learned from football, and then later on, how did you get into business? How did that come about? Did you have any other odd jobs
I
before
guess.
business, or
Well,
what?
yeah,
How did
absolutely. What happened? My dad became disabled when I was young, and I had to get a job. And just so happened, I was 20 years old when he was disabled, and I had helped them out. And my uncle became a chief of police down in St. Bernard Parish at the time. And I called him, and that was one of my things I always wanted to do. Be in business all my life. I used to carry a briefcase since I was little, but I always wanted to be a policeman too. I had a gun in my briefcase too, a fake gun, and I'd carry around when I was 5 years old. So I always was going between being a policeman and being a businessman.
And was your dad a businessman or no?
He was to a certain extent.
Okay.
You know, he wouldn't take the chances that I took in life because he had 4 kids and that.
Sure.
But he had always had a side business to his job. You know,
Okay.
so he worked in the shipyard, but he always had a side business building alarm panels for tugboats and rigs. So that's how he made his extra money to put us through Holy Cross and stuff. But I became a policeman. I called my uncle and I said, "Look, I really need a job." He brought me in. He introduced me right away. Brought me into this gentleman with dark glasses in his room with no lights on, a scary guy. And they interviewed me, and they said, "We want you to be in narcotics." And I said, "Narcotics? Why me?" They said, "Because you're 20 years old and you look like you're 11." And they said,
Perfect fit.
Perfect fit. We want you to go undercover in high schools." And at first, I really didn't want to do it. And the gentleman they used to call a hawk, he convinced me, like, you're not hurting people by putting them in jail. You're actually helping people from saving their lives from doing drugs, and especially kids. So he made sense. I wanted to save kids' lives.
There you go.
So I went undercover in high school, and I actually had to take tests and sit in class for about 7, 8 months and work undercover and buy drugs in the middle class and buy drugs off of some teachers and stuff. And they wanted me to play football at that school, and I begged my boss to let me play football. He said, "You can't. When they win, you'll be ineligible." So I had to make up an excuse that I had a hurt leg because I was supposed to be from Texas, and I had a hurt knee, and they wanted to send me to Dr. Sayer with Tulane at Tulane, which was the Saints doctor. They said to clear me, and I said, "No, my mom don't want me to play again." I had to keep up making excuses because
That's
I
funny.
was very muscular, even though I was
And
short.
you really gotta live a different life.
Different life. Yeah,
That's
so,
crazy.
So I had to live 2 lives, And,
Yeah.
So anyway, but I never really did like being a policeman, other than helping people. I never liked putting people to jail. I was a policeman where I thought I'd like to help people instead of hurt people. And but I always wanted to be in business since I was 5 years old. So I started a sporting goods store right after I became a policeman, and I was a full-time policeman running a sporting goods store, and that failed. And then what I did was I took all the tennis shoes out of the sporting goods store, sold them out of the trunk of my car, or my police car, and made all my investment back, so I didn't lose any money in the sporting goods store.
So that first sporting goods store, How did you even start that? Because a lot of people don't really have the courage, or at least the belief that you could just start something like that. Where did the money come from? What connections did you have to make? How did that even come about?
Every penny I got since I was a little boy, my grandmother and them used to give me, like for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that. I'd save. I'd save everything, and then I used to throw papers in high school, and I'd save. I made $80 a month. I'd save, and I saved up to 40,000. And then I went to a gentleman who was in a sporting goods store already, and he agreed to be my partner and help me out, and that's how I got started.
Because you knew what you were going to do as a 5-year-old, you said.
Right,
so
exactly.
It wasn't nothing to save it.
And shortly after that, I bought a peanut and candy store, and my mother and father used to drive almost 40 miles to go work for me for $2.50 an hour, and go run the store for me while I was still in the police force. And then the mall came to me that we're in and asked me to open up a restaurant because I was so successful in a peanut and candy store. So then I reopened a Spats, which is like a Bennigan's, and started that. And then I had a partner that wasn't so upfront with everything, so I got away from him, sold out to him, and stayed in the police department for a while. Then I married my beautiful wife at 30 years old, who was still in dental school. And shortly after, I got into the ATM business and got my real estate license after. And that's when it all started to blossom.
Whenever you started real estate and ATM business.
Yeah, that's when everything started to come together at 30, 31, 32 years old.
And so that's what you're doing now, right? Those are your main two
I still do
businesses.
that. I'm a real estate broker still. I grew my ATM business, me and my brother, from 1 ATM to 600 ATMs. My brokerage business, shortly after I got into real estate, I started brokering hotels under Ladder and Bloom. And, I was making 6 figures in a short period of time. And at the same time, every time I'd sell a hotel, I'd ask the buyer to let me put my ATM machine into their lobby. And so that's how we started growing the business. Me and my brother grew it. We're in it 25 years now. We process over 600 ATM machines.
Nice.
And of course, I own a residential Weichert Loescher Realty Company. I own the CML Commercial Real Estate Services, which is my commercial real estate broker company. I'm a developer for Speedy Cash. I was putting together deals for CVS for a long time. I did a lot of development for myself on historical deals, historical buildings, and I also built a couple of hotels that I used new market tax credits for. And I got to give my CPA, Ken Abney, the credit for all that. He's taught me a lot of things. He's made me a lot of money.
We're going to have him on soon, too.
Yeah,
He's going to be a guest on the podcast.
Ken's probably one of the best tax credit CPAs probably in the United States. He's an expert on it and taught me how to make money on it and use tax credits to my advantage.
He's a good contact to have. I would like to interrupt today's show to say that if you are looking to relocate to South Louisiana, whether that be in the next 9 days or the next 90 days, whenever that happens to be, guys, you can give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or even schedule a Zoom call with us, actually. And we've got your back and would love to help you with your smooth move to South Louisiana. And if you are located in Louisiana and have a home that needs to get sold, only reach out to us if you're looking to get top dollar and the least amount of time with the least amount of headache. Or if you would prefer a cash offer, Chuck and I both buy properties as well, so that's something we can help you out with in that regard as well. And the sponsor of today's show is Dr. Lisa Loescher, who is the best dentist on the North Shore. And she's giving away a free teeth whitening kit to you guys. So if you have teeth that are not white, or your teeth could be a little whiter, all you got to do is click the link in the description down below, and you have a chance of winning that free teeth whitening kit. All right, back to the show.
For sure. Great contact.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share about your life story? You pretty much told it from start to finish. Anything else you want to say about what you learned or anything?
Anybody that's in business, the first thing you need is a great CPA. You need and I didn't realize this till later in life, even after I was in business. I didn't realize you need a great CPA, you need a great attorney, business attorney, and you need to have investors backing you or a cash flow business backing you. Some type of cash flow to keep you going, because you need means to live, but then you need the extra cash to invest to grow your net worth. And we could teach all that in other podcasts we have, but it's very important, to have a great CPA that knows the tax law, knows tax credits, a great attorney that knows finance law, knows title, and have investors behind you or have a cash flow business behind you, which I was fortunate to build.
That's good advice. So I'm gonna tell a little bit about my story. So I grew up. Chuck grew up on the South Shore. He grew up in St. Bernard Parish in Araby. I grew up on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain. I grew up in Covington, and I live in Madisonville now, which is where our office is. But so yeah, I grew up in Covington, and I was a quiet kid. And I also, for whatever reason, I didn't know necessarily I wanted to be in business, but I knew I wanted to make money. I knew that I needed to figure out a way to make money. And we would drive around. My parents would show us these houses that they wanted to buy, and they were all, I guess you would say, below average houses. And I would ask them, like, well, why can't we have this house? Why can't we have this house? They tell me, well, we can't afford that. And so in my brain, I've always been like this. There's two kinds of people in life. One person says, well, I can't have it because life's not fair, and that's not for me. I'm a different kind of person. A different kind of person is able to buy that house. But my mindset is, well, if someone is able to buy that house, then I can buy that house. I'm also a human being. If this human being can do this, then I can also do this because I'm no different than him. And so from a young age, I was like, well, I've got to figure out how to get the things that I want. If I see someone drive by in a Ferrari, my question to myself is, how do I get the Ferrari? Not this guy's a butthole, or this guy's just showing off or something. None of that negativity went through my mind, even at a young age. But anyways, like I said, I was a quiet kid, and I found out whenever pretty much my freshman year of high school, I found out I wasn't able to focus. I wasn't able to retain any information that I learned in school. So I'd have to come home, and I'd either have to teach myself or have my mom teach me. My mom would stay up till past midnight sometimes teaching me the schoolwork that the teacher was teaching us, because I couldn't retain it. So I would tell him I can't focus. I'm having trouble focusing in school. And at first it was kind of something they blew off. Like, yeah, you can focus. You're doing just fine, because I always had good grades or whatever. Well, I made them bring me to the doctor. I was like, I'm telling you, something's different. My brain is not working like the other kids. And so turns out I had a pretty bad case of ADHD. Like I said, I couldn't read, and I'm being serious.
I don't feel bad about that. I had the same thing, but they didn't know what that was when I was in high school.
Yeah, there wasn't a name for it.
They didn't have a name for it.
So I would look at a book, and it's just words, and of course I knew how to read. I could read words, but I couldn't read a book. I'd look at it, and I wouldn't be able to follow. Even if I read an entire page, I'd forget everything instantly. I couldn't retain it. But anyways, I kind of learned the same way you learned about hard work, which was the other kids, they could finish their work no problem. They'd learn things in school, and they'd take tests, and they'd be just fine. Well, I had to work 10 times harder than them, because I had to go home and learn it myself, and then try to I was a bad test taker too, but I got the extra time, and I would stay, hours after school got out taking my test. I was the only one there. Everyone else left, went home or whatever, and I'm still at the school for 2 hours taking my test. So I've had that too, and for whatever reason, my mentality in high school was, well, I know I can't focus like they can, but I kind of had this pride that I knew I was going to make it, because I was accepting the fact that I was going to have to work harder and I was going to go for it. So what I did was I actually took honors classes in high school, and the regular classes would have been extremely difficult anyways. And but it was just the fact that I made myself do it because of what it meant to me, that I could prove to myself that I could do something instead of beating myself up and telling myself, oh, I'm broken or something like that. That's the route I took, and I think it served me very well. So,
It's not to be ashamed of. Many people have that problem, and usually the people with them problems are more successful than the normal person.
you think so?
But I know in my heart, successful. And most people that don't have college degrees are probably 60-70% of the most successful people in the U.S. And I'm not saying don't have a college degree. I'm just telling you that it seems like when you don't have it, that you work twice as hard to prove that you can do it.
Yep. And it was something I had to prove to myself. I also took karate when I was younger. I was like probably 8 years old when I started karate. I got my black belt when I was young, so it's not like I remember much from karate, but what I do remember is our karate instructor had on the wall, he had integrity, discipline, and I think hard work, something like that. But nowadays people tell me, Carson, you have so much integrity, you have so much discipline, self-confidence, etc. Like, how did you learn these things? Did this come naturally to you? I think it was actually from that karate class, because he'd make us every day to walk in. He'd make us say aloud. He'd say, every day and every way I'm getting better and better. And it was like these affirmations we say every day. And on the wall, it's discipline, integrity, hard work. And I think that's where I got it from, and that's why I think I'm where I'm at now. But anyways, yeah, that was my life up until high school. I went to college for a couple years, decided it wasn't for me, but I was working at PJ's Coffee, which is a local coffee shop here, for 4 years. That's where I met Mr. Chuck. He used to come in every day and get a protein velvet ice for his son Chandler, who is a world champion power lifter, by the way. His Instagram is Big Chan Lifts, so y'all can follow him on there. That dude's crazy. What do you cook him in the mornings?
Every morning I got to go, first I go to PJ's, get him a extra large velvet vanilla ice protein shake. And then I go to Winn-Dixie and buy an extra large chicken pack and four small steaks and a bag of rice. So I go home.
He eats all that once per day?
I put it in 2 separate containers. And he goes to school and asks his teacher, can he start at 10 o'clock in the morning, because he's got to eat every 2 hours. And he eats one and eats the other one and saves some for 2. But then he goes after school and gets a smoothie with protein in it, and then goes to the gym twice a day. And then he goes home and studies from 7, 8 o'clock at night to 12 o'clock at night with his mom, like you used to do, because he don't retain information good like you. Yeah. But he's a world champion. I'm very proud of him, and he holds a lot of state and national records.
How much of that is just the hard work that you were telling me earlier? Just if the other powerlifters aren't working at these times, or they're not eating every 2 hours like this, so if you want to beat them, you gotta do it.
He practices kind of what I preach, and not to pat myself on the back, but he, during the hurricanes, before he had to evacuate, he had to go to the gym. So he went to the gym. When he was evacuated, he went to the gym every day. Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, he goes to the gym. He goes to the gym. It's 24 hours a day. And he makes sure he goes twice a day if he can. He works out 2 hours at a time. So he works out 4 hours a day. So that's how he achieves his goals. And he writes his goals on his wall in his room every morning on the chalkboard.
Nice.
What he wants to achieve. And he makes sure he achieves it.
That's powerful.
He's only 17 years old, but he gets it, and hopefully he relates, if he's ever failing in life, that he relates back to how he reached them goals, and uses that same philosophy. And he goes to the chapel every day, just like I used to at St. Paul's, and prays to God and thanks God for what he has, and asks God to give him the strength of Samson.
That is so good. That's real good. I think if anyone that has any type of goal, if you put it on the wall like that and you see it every day and you remind yourself, it kind of gives you a little bit more motivation to keep going. And I think one thing that people forget is to celebrate the small wins, because if you have this big goal and there's all these steps you got to take to get to that goal, you've got to celebrate each one to give you that momentum to keep going to the next one. Because what happens if you don't celebrate it, there's no dopamine, you don't feel good, and you just quit because you're like, oh, it's not, it takes forever, whatever. But you've got to encourage it and celebrate it. And that's why I think I do well in real estate, because I get all the encouragement from you guys that you're just you're always telling me, always hyping me up, really telling me that I'm doing good. So it helps with that. When I hear that,
you're a natural.
It helps me keep going. It helps keep the momentum. And I
You're
think
natural,
when you have
you're young, and you're gonna be great at what you do.
No
matter what you do, you're gonna be great at it. You have what it takes. You have the drive.
Thank you.
You have the drive and the talent too. My son's an entrepreneur too. He got a bunch of T-shirts made, Born to Bench, and he sells his T-shirts for $30 a piece.
Nice.
And if y'all want to follow him, big
where do they get the T-shirts at? Through Instagram?
They probably can reach out to him on Instagram.
I got
and
you.
Get them, and he'd send it to them. But he's learning entrepreneurship. He's starting to enjoy making money, and he's big chin lifts, and he's having his own website built, and he's going to train people over a website how to become powerful like him. And you might want to follow him because he's his bench press record is 550 pounds, which is more than anybody has ever benched in the state of Louisiana. So you might want to follow him this year. I think it's going to happen in March. He's probably going to try to do 600, which would be, he wants to break his own record.
How old is he?
He'll be 18 by then.
18 years old.
But
600 pounds. I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to get the 600 pounds. He doesn't do any drugs either. He doesn't do any steroids.
All natural.
All natural. He doesn't drink alcohol. He's the cleanest kid you'd ever meet in your life, and he's just a monster. He's crazy. Mm-hmm. But anyways, like I said, I was working at PJ's. I was a barista for forever, and I guess I was good at talking to people, and people generally liked me. I had a lot of good relationships from the coffee shop, and so I was talking back and forth with Mr. Chuck one day because he'd come in and talk about opening a PJ's franchise or open some kind of coffee shop. And for whatever reason, I kind of had this urge, and I say this to people all the time. Whenever I have these sudden urges, that's not impulsive, but it feels like something that needs to get done, something that I have to do, it's always a good decision. Anytime I have these urges, it's always, I think it's from God. I think it's a message that if I want my life to go how I want my life to go, this is my opportunity. So when those opportunities come up, I always make sure to grab it. And so I was walking one night, and I had this random urge that I need to get Chuck's phone number, and I need to build some kind of relationship with him, talk to him. I didn't know what it was going to be about at first, but he came in the next day, and I said, Mr. Chuck, I need you to write down your phone number on the back of this receipt. And like I said, didn't know why. And so we started texting back and forth, and I guess he liked what I was saying.
I thought I wrote the wrong phone number, but I guess I didn't. Just kidding.
Yeah, so he liked what I was saying, and he at first what we were going to do is open a coffee shop together. I guess he saw something in me, and we were driving around looking for a location for a coffee shop. He told me off the bat, just randomly one day, he said, "You'd be good at selling real estate." And so I knew nothing about real estate back then. It's like, what is he talking about? But he's talking to me about selling hotels and all kinds of stuff, and how much his daughter's making, etc. So I started looking into it, and I learned a little bit about it, and it made sense to me. It made a whole lot more sense than what I was doing, because when you're in the W-2 world, no matter how much money you're making, you have to trade your time for money, and that's the way it works. If you're making minimum wage, you trade this amount of hours to make this amount money. And with with 1099 world, or if you own any kind of business, because real estate agents, technically, they own their own business. They work for themselves. If you own any kind of business, you have to work hard for a long time. You work hard, but the time you put in is not proportionate to the amount of money that you make. And I know that the way I'm building my business, that one day I'll be able to live off of referrals, that I'll have so much business coming in that I'm essentially working for in the past that comes to fruition later on. And so it made a whole lot more sense from a money perspective, that I know I'm willing to work hard for it, and I know it's going to pay off way more than it ever could working at a coffee shop. Because remember, college wasn't for me. I thought maybe I was going to be a nutritionist, but I knew I was going to have to own some kind of business or figure something out. So real estate made sense, and I started doing that.
No, when you're in sales, sky's the limit, especially a real estate license. You never know when, and it's happened to me where, I brokered $20 million deals. And you don't imagine that when you first get your license, that you could actually broker a $20 million deal and possibly make 3% or 2% of that deal, which is huge money, 400,000, 600,000 or whatever. So the sky's the limit. It's just how hard you work, and when I used to work for Loud and Bloom, I'd walk into these celebrations at the end of the year thinking, man, I had to be the top agent this year. I was making $200,000-300,000, and there was always some guy that walked in that sold $100 million in real estate that year and made $600,000, to my 200. And I'd walk in proud, like I know it's going to be me, and then time I walk out, I have my head down. It's like, damn, these guys are good, But over the years, I got that good. It just takes time. It takes time to get that good with experience in it. And anybody could do it with the drive and motivation like you have, and not giving up. Like I said, do not ever give up. Never give up. It's I went to a seminar the other day with the gentleman that owns a Hobby Lobby, and he started out borrowing $600 to start his first business, and then out of his garage, and then he grew to a retail center. And he was in that retail center, and he couldn't make payroll, just bouncing checks and everything. And he went in his office and kept praying, he'd pull out the hole. And all of a sudden, things started going his way, and he pulled out the hole. Now he does $800 billion a year in sales. Oh yeah, things $80 billion a year in sales. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
And he gives 50% of his net profit to the church. So you got to figure on $80 billion. He's probably making 20%, which is $160 million a year. So he's giving $80 million to the church, per year.
That's crazy.
But you got to know.
There's always someone who's making more, who's doing more, right. Someone that you can learn from. No matter how big you get, there's always someone else. But
the key is you're going to go through failures in life. Everybody's going to go through failures and hard times. There's the ones that get up and keep going. There's the ones that are going to be successful. The ones that crawl under the table and cry and give up are the ones that never be successful, or the ones that never try and just keep pointing the fingers and
feel bad for themselves.
And don't want to work, or jealousy and stuff. Jealousy kills.
Yeah.
Jealousy kills. You should get with that person that's motivated and go with him and follow positive people all the time.
I've heard that
it's a mindset. Positive people, follow positive people, hang with positive people, and fight. And somebody sits there and argues with you. The worst thing is when somebody actually shows advice, and you give them the best advice you have, and they're going to argue about the advice you give them. It's like, okay, well, why did you ask me for advice?
Yeah.
Why you ask me for advice? You're going to argue against me. I'm giving you my advice. If you got a different opinion,
that's called picking a fight.
Right, picking a fight. It's like, don't ask my advice if you don't want to hear the truth.
Right.
But I'm positive about everything. Everybody can make it. Anybody can make it in this world. You got to be wanted and hard. God's made people from all different types of race and stuff to do different type of jobs and trades and that. Without trade people, we couldn't survive. Without people who were cooks, we couldn't survive. So everybody's has a talent. They got to find that talent, but they got to build from that talent. If you're a cook, You be the best cook you could ever be and become a chef, and that chef becomes the owner of a restaurant. If you're at McDonald's and you're mopping floors, learn how to mop the floors better than anybody else. Learn how to work the register anybody else. Learn how to make them hamburgers better than learn how to wrap them hamburgers better than anyone else, and build yourself to where you're going to own the McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know, don't think that because you're belittled because you're taking that job mopping the floors, because you're not. Take that job as that you want to learn that job the best you can, because one day you're going to own that McDonald's or you're going to own that Burger King or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that was kind of me at PJ's. I was determined I was going to be the best barista, and I was asked to be manager. I didn't want to be manager, I just wanted to be the best barista, and there really wasn't a reason. I thought maybe I'd own a PJ's, maybe I'd own a franchise or whatever, but
You still might one day, you know?
yeah,
You don't know where you don't know where life's going to take you.
I don't.
But whatever you do, don't be ashamed of it. Have the mindset. It's all about mindset, positive mindset. You know, I'm taking out trash today. I'm a trash man today, but I'm going to own a trash company one day.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be ashamed of. No business, nothing you do in life is to be ashamed of. You know?
I think the hard part for people is sticking that in their mind, which is why
it's hard,
because life happens and then you kind of get away from your goals. That's why I was saying, like Chandler does, he puts it on his wall. Like he knows what his purpose, he knows what his goals are because he sees it every single day. He wakes up and sees it, and you said he writes it. So I think that's, you've got to, it's consistency. You've got to see it and you've got to believe it every single day. If it's
a mindset. It's a mindset you got to be creative with. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of times these mindsets have got to be placed in your mind when you're young. So you grow positive thinking, positive mindset. You can change it, but you know, a lot of things start at home. You know, and if it doesn't start at home, you got to say, hey, you got to step away from your home and say, look, I'm going to be positive.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a positive person. I'm not going to hang around with the bad crowds. I'm not going to hang around with these people who do drugs and all that. I want to be successful in life. I want to make something of myself.
I'll tell you something that I learned a while back. So there's different brainwave states that we all have. I think beta is the one we're most often in, which is kind of alert and awake and like having conversations. I believe that's beta. And then you get into, I believe, alpha. And then alpha, I believe, is when you're starting to get tired, you're getting ready to go to bed or whatever, you're kind of winding down for the night. And then you get into theta when you're falling asleep. Well, so a child from 0 to 7 years old is always in theta. And when you're in theta, you're suggestible and you're programmable, which is the equivalent of programming a computer or a robot to do certain things. When your kid is 0 to 7 years old, you can literally program them to believe anything, to have whatever kind of mindset. It's at that age that people are literally made. Like if you tell a kid that they are a bad kid at a young age like that, if you tell them they're bad, they're always not listening to you, etc., guess what they're going to do when they're in high school or later on in life? They're going to end up in jail, etc., a lot of times because they were taught to believe that I'm a bad kid. It's who I am. If you teach a 6-year-old that money isn't for you, that people that have money are lucky and they're not happy anyways, blah, 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 blah. That's whatever you teach them, it's going to stick with them. So if any one of our listeners has a kid at that age, 0 to 7 years old, remember you're programming them. Whatever they hear you say or whatever you say to them is going to stick with them for the rest of their life.
Positive mindset. Everything's positive, you know, and when you have children, you should do everything with them. You know, when you go out to eat, take them with you. Anything you do, go to the movies, take them with you as much as you can. And be an example because they're watching you every second of the day. And they're looking at it. There's a song out where it's a country song where he says, Papa, I was watching you, like where you learn to pray like that. I was watching you, Dad. I was watching you pray. So they watch everything you do, and they want to be like you. So if you set a negative goal for them, they're going to become negative. If you set positive, and you show them you're praying, you're being a good person, and you want them to be a good person, and tell them they can achieve anything in their lives, they'll achieve. They'll achieve. Yeah, and you can overcome some of the obstacles in your life, and I've seen a lot of people overcome that. But if you can prevent, they have to come over that obstacle, and have a mindset for them to be positive. They'll be positive. Yeah.
Do you have any mindset tips and tricks or strategies that anyone that's wanting to improve their mindset, maybe someone listening just knows they need to improve, that they're telling themselves negative things, they're just going through something, what
Yeah.
can they do?
Well, first, I believe, you have to pray to God. That's the first thing. Second thing, I've always hung around with people older than me. I'm an old guy now, but I've always hung around people 20 years older than me. And
More experienced
more experience, and they taught me. They would tell me, Chuck, don't do this. And the reason why they're telling you not to do that, because they've been through it, and they know it don't work. They say, don't do this, do this. And listen to older people, because they've been through it and they experienced. I have many friends who are a lot older than me, are multimillionaires, and they made many mistakes, and they were broke. And they would tell me, Chuck, don't do this, because they knew. And they were friends of mine, and they had feelings with me, and they didn't want me to fail and go the route that they had to fail and the hardships they go through. Even though I went through hardships, because a lot of times you don't listen to people, but I'm telling you to listen to older people, pray, listen to older people, and keep working hard. Work hard, have goals, and that's the key to success. Key to success, and ask for people. Don't be ashamed to ask for advice. A lot of people are stubborn and say, I don't need anybody. Well, you do need people. You need customers, you need clients to get through, but you also need friends. I've had a good banker in my life, a gentleman named Dean Haynes that taught me how to get financing when it was hard to get financing. I had a great attorney, Marcus Giusti, a real estate attorney. I have a great CPA, Ken Aveney. I've learned from all them. They had to go through school and get all the education where I cheated, where I just talked to them and learned from them. So I let them pay for the education. I learned from them.
Yeah, there you go.
I learned from them, and they did a great job. They were teaching me, and that's how I learned. But I listened. I didn't buck them. I didn't say, no, you're wrong, Ken, or no, you're wrong, Marcus, or no, you're wrong, Dean. I sat there and listened, and I have another great friend named Joe. And Joe's worth probably over $100 million, but he was broke at one time, eating out of trash cans and stuff. But he advised me on things and told me, Chuck, don't do this. And he was always right. He always could predict the future. Tell me, don't invest in this right now. It's not the time. So I've listened. I've listened to them, and that's how I got the experience and became successful.
Yeah. If someone has done the thing that you want to do, it's probably a good idea to listen to what they have to say.
Right. If everybody's going that way and they're making money, don't go the other way, because that's the way. And I did that mistake sometimes. Everybody was running to like Lakeview and Metairie after Katrina, and I ran the other way. And the ones that were in Lakeview and Metairie, they made all the money. They made a lot of money because I went other ways. I made some money too, but I didn't make as much as them.
Right. Right.
So it kind of followed a trend.
Okay. So any other things on mindset before we move on?
Mindset, like I said, just be positive and always look to somebody that's got more experience than you, and don't be ashamed to say you don't know, and ask questions.
Okay. So I want to know, Mr. Chuck, what your biggest accomplishments are in both business and personal. So we'll start with business. What do you think is your biggest business accomplishment?
Business accomplishment is probably development, learning through other people, being a broker, and learning through my CPA to take how to take tax advantages by developing. I developed a beautiful building downtown, a historical building at 300 Barone Street, that my accountant showed me how to use tax credits to get money to actually get the equity to do a $5 million deal. And it was very successful. Then he taught me how to get new market tax credits, which I actually built a hotel, a Best Western, down in St. Bernard Parish after Katrina, which was one of the first brand new developments down there in hotel development in years that we really did very, very well with. And I'm proud of them two developments. You know, I also developed, helped CVS assemble properties. Well, actually, Hartford out of Connecticut assemble properties to build CVS on, which was really very tough deals. But I was glad to be a part of it with them and learn, and was the key to keeping holding the deals together because these deals take a long time to develop. Um, so that and raising capital, learning how to raise capital for different deals to stay in deals. So, I'm not afraid to go out there and do a $10 million deal, $5 million deal, because I know how to raise capital now. And I've learned that from experience from older gentlemen and people in the real estate business. So I'm proud of that. And personal, you know, I, the best thing, I guess, I met my wife, beautiful wife, and my wife is very successful in dentistry. And together we raised three beautiful kids that we're very, very proud of. One graduated from University of Alabama, who's in real estate with me. One's graduated from LSU, who's now in LSU Dental School. Hopefully she takes over her mother's practices. And my son I'm very proud of. He's a world champion powerlifter and honor roll student at St. Paul's. And hopefully his achievements take him far beyond what I achieved in life.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else you want to share with the listeners before we wrap it up?
I just want to tell you, when people tell you never, you can't do it, take that as you can do it. And stay positive. And trust me, the only reason why I made it successful in my life is because God wanted me to be where I'm at. And without God, I couldn't have did it. I believe he tested me, and he still tested me, but he just gave me the opportunity to get to where I'm at. And he's lending me this time, and everything I own, he's lending to me. It's not really mine.
Stay positive. Work on your mindset. Believe in yourself. And that's pretty much it for episode 1.